You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, on Wednesday, President-elect Joe Biden and VP-elect Kamala Harris, they met with civil rights leaders representing National Action Network, National Urban League, NAACP, Legal Defense Fund, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, as well as the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. It was supposed to be a private meeting. Now, they came out and talked about it, but somebody recorded the meeting, even though at the outset of the Zoom call, Team Biden said this meeting is not being recorded, but somebody did. So they leaked it to the Intercept, who dropped the audio, edited in their podcast today. Here is an excerpt.
I'm the first person, black or white, who called attention to the fact that you were finding that there was the rate of people who were African Americans who are dying was 3 times that of white people. I don't carry around a stamp on my head saying progressive and I'm AOC, but I have more of a record of getting things done in the United States Congress than anybody you know. Anybody you know. By 2040, this country is going to be minority white European. Hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do. Let's get something straight. You shouldn't be disappointed. What I've done so far is more than anybody else has done this far. Okay? Number one. Number two, I mean what I say when I say it.
We don't care about throwing fists in the air and the symbols. We want the substance. The Joe Biden I've known is substance. The Kamala Harris I've known is substance. We need it now more than ever. And I would hope that the first day you start doing the things with your executive orders to restore some dignity to law enforcement in our community and to voting.
There's some things that I'm going to be able to do by executive order. I'm not going to hesitate to do it. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to do what used to, Benita, you probably used to get angry with me during the debates, when you'd have some of the people you were supporting say, on day one, I'm going to executive order to do this. Not within the constitutional authority. I am not going to violate the Constitution. There is a Constitution. It's our only hope. Our only hope. And the way to deal with it is where I have executive authority, I will use it to undo every single damn thing this guy has done by executive authority. But I'm not going to exercise executive authority where it's questioned, where I can come along and say, I can do away with assault weapons. There's no executive authority to do away with that. And no one's fought harder to get rid of assault weapons than me. Me. But you can't do it by executive order. If you do that, next guy comes along and says, well, guess what? By executive order, I'm going to say everybody can own machine guns again.
All right, let's bring in our regular Thursday panel. Dr. Greg Carr, Chair, Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University. Reese Colbert, Black Women Views. Erica Savage-Wilson, Savage Politics Podcast. Now, let me position this first. We have not received the full recording. We have not heard, again, the full recording. So I'm going to reserve some of my judgment because I would like to hear it actually in context. In terms of, because what the Intercept posted, and if y'all want to, y'all can go to the Intercept's podcast, the Deconstructed Podcast with Ryan Grimm. It's a 15-minute podcast, and they actually have their audio and audio here as well. So I just wanted to lay that out there because, again, that's important. Because one, we don't know how long this was. I know it was at least an hour. We don't know actually how long it was. So even what they got was an excerpt of the call. But let's deal with what was stated. So first, I want to deal with this defund the police thing, which Biden talks about in there, where he says that defund the police got Democrats killed. Here is what I have yet to see anywhere, Greg. I have yet to see anyone present me actual evidence, data, showing that defund the police led to Democrats losing. I've got anecdotal. I've got Democrats crying who lost. Okay, I'm not a socialist. I'm not defund the police. But Carolyn Bordeaux, a Democrat, ran in a purple district in Georgia. They hit her with massive ads saying she was for defund the police. She still won. Okay? So if we're gonna break down this conversation, I think first there has to be an actual analysis of the districts we're talking about. Okay? Are they lean blue, lean red districts? That's first we got to talk about that. Second of all, you got to show me actually what the impact was. Because it's real easy to lay blame at defund the police, but what AOC has been saying, some of y'all just ran horrible ass campaigns. And so we have to push back on folks, even Biden, who wants to say defund the police is why we got our butts kicked. Based upon what, Greg? Show me some evidence. I have yet to see it.
Well, Brother Roland, as Richard Pryor once said, I ain't got to show you shit. This is the sensibility since the 1990s and the Bill Clinton, who is the face of it, centrist turn of the Democratic Party. I mean, Joe Biden is a known quality. And I hope that to quote another anecdote he shared during that 15 minutes, and I did listen to the Intercept podcast. I guess one of his black friends, he referenced Kamala Harris and Cedric Richmond and said, hey, y'all heard me tell this story. So let's make sure that I, to quote Joe Biden, overstand you at this point. Biden is running the same thing Democrats always run, brother. I thought it was interesting watching your interview with our brother Derek Johnson the other day. Hearing Derek say, Tom Vilsack's a bad choice, bruh. You talking about worried about this election in Georgia? Shirley Sherrod is a civil rights hero in Georgia. You picking Vilsack at this point could endanger the January. And then Biden comes back with, I don't really want to talk about that. And while I'm on it, this defund the police business. Maybe we need, I assure you, I promise you that all these things are going to happen after January 5th. But right now, we've got to win these elections. So, I have sympathy for Joe Biden. Why? Because he's a Democrat. I have sympathy for all the elected Democrats. Why? Because they're dealing with a structure that they don't seem to have yet quite grasped. To quote Rush Limbaugh from yesterday and today when he said, he fears that this country is moving towards secession. 74 million people showed you they don't give a damn about the American. So you talking about the Constitution, they talking about white supremacy. And so Joe's caught in the middle. As a white man, he can't give up on America. So I understand why he talked to them that way. And I'm glad they pushed back, at least from the 15 minutes we've heard so far.
Reese, the thing that I'll say this here, and I got no problem saying it, Joe Biden, you need to watch your tone. You need to watch your tone. Kamala Harris needs to pull Joe Biden aside. Joe, you might want to watch your tone. Joe Biden, and he did during the debate, and he did it here, where I did this, and I did that, I did this, and I did that. That was last week. Now, first of all, let's be real clear. That works fine in a debate because you're trying to establish what I've done. But Reese, I think about this scene from my favorite show of all time, The West Wing. And there was a particular Latino leader who showed up at a basketball game sitting courtside with either a potential Democratic candidate or was Republican. And the White House was incensed. And they called him to the White House for a meeting. Well, so-and-so, what are you doing? We saw the game. We gave you this, and this, and this. And he said, that was last year. This is this year. The reality is this for black folks. Joe, what you've done the last 47 years is irrelevant to where we are today. It's what you're going to do the next 4 years that's going to matter.
I agree with you to a certain extent. Listen, I'm not a Joe Biden apologist Joe Biden was never my candidate. I think if people wanted somebody who was super civil rights, super black, gung-ho, they should have picked Kamala or Corey. So we're stuck with what we're stuck with, which is it takes a white man to beat a white man. That was the mentality that a lot of people went into the election with. However, I will say this. Listen, I will never take anything from the Intercept at face value, because I've seen how they operate. And this is the exact kind of thing that they did to Senator Kamala Harris, now VP-elect Kamala Harris, is they take splices of things and they edit it together and they present a picture. That I listened to that 15-minute clip. It was narrated with splices here and there and here and there, and it paints a picture of what it wants you to see. When I saw the feedback from the individuals who attended that meeting, Vanita Gupta, Sherilyn Ifill, and people who are very distinguished in things, people who are very credible, they all talked about how constructive and productive the meeting was and how encouraged they were from leaving it. So I'm not saying that I'm not going to defend Joe Biden's tone. Joe Biden is a guy who talks loud. He talks aggressive. Obviously, we expect a certain level of, tone when we're talking to each other. I'm not going to defend that. But, outside of the context, if you just have splices of Joe Biden shouting like he always does, he's a 78-year-old white man. He shouts, okay? That's not revelatory to me. It is what it is with that. But, like I said, to me, I just look at it as it's the Intercept. It's a selectively edited clip. It's seconds taken out of an hour-plus long meeting in which everybody left the meeting feeling encouraged. I don't agree with every Joe Biden decision, but this is who we signed up for.
Well, Erica,
so that's how I feel about it.
But Erica, here's the deal. First of all, what individuals say publicly are not necessarily fully reflective of how the meeting actually went. So let's just say that. So
why say lie?
Huh?
No.
Because here's the deal. You're not going to come out of your first meeting with the president-elect and say it was a shit show. You're not. Right. What you're going to do, you're not. So it's a posturing deal, okay? It's a posturing deal. And so I can guarantee you, because I've already talked to people who were in the meeting, there was a lot of issues that they were bothered by. But again, you're going to come out and have a different spin because you're giving a public pronouncement. Here's the thing that jumps out the most here. Erica, and it's real simple. This is very simple. And that is this here. These same black organizations, in many ways, were silent and impotent when Obama was president. It wasn't solely because they didn't want to push Obama. It was also because when they slightly pushed Obama, their black base pushed back against them. So, you've got Biden Harris. Here's the deal. Biden needs to understand they are going to be aggressive because that's their job. It is the job to push him on executive orders. It is the job to push him on police reform, not the creation of another commission. Obama had one. Go get their report and add to it. When he laid out, what's constitutional? I get it, because there were some action, there were some executive orders that Obama did that the courts later declared he was wrong. So I get Joe Biden's position on all of that. But when Joe Biden says in there, hey, Latinos, we're going to be 2040, y'all got to work with them. I'm sorry. Kwesi Mfume, when he was head of the NAACP, did that in 1994, 95 when he went to LULAC. I remember because I reported on it. So the reality, those things have been happening. But the point is this here. And this is the point that Biden is going to have to understand and Harris is going to have to understand, the entire administration. That in the last Democratic administration, a lot of black people were quiet. A lot of black folks didn't ask for stuff. A lot of black folks stood back and saw, no, didn't say anything. That ain't going to happen. Biden, Harris, they're not going to get the same runway that Obama got from 2009 to 2016. So, their job is to push. Now, the question, Erica, then becomes, how far do they want to push? How aggressive do they want to go? So Derek was on this show. He talked about Tom Vilsack. I get it. Which now means that Biden, if you're going to stick with Tom Vilsack, let's holler at you. See, it's real simple. If Vilsack is going to be the nominee, we got to holler at you. We want to see concrete things done by you in the first 90 days, Tom Vilsack, because you're on the clock. because of what you didn't do in 8 years under Obama. So this is what's going to happen. And I believe, and this is the last point, Eric, before I go to you, that there are inside people who work in the administration. They're the inside people. There are external people who are inside, meaning they're having the private conversations. But you always have got to have black groups who are outside. You always got to have black groups who never get invited to the meeting on the inside, because see, those folk, they got the swing on the outside, and the inside and the outside people got to be able to say, look at here, y'all might want to do this, because if you don't, they are going to rise up. So the outside actually empowers those on the inside. Our failure under Obama is that everybody was inside and was afraid to be outside. Erica, go ahead.
Sure. And then there's the runway that Donald Trump has had for the past 4 years that he's been able to get away literally with murder. We're talking 290,000 people now dead from COVID-19 and counting. I think that also a lot of the demands that are being made is because of, to be very frank and to be very honest, a lot of inactivity from the citizenry. So this is not laying squarely the blame of what has not happened on the citizenry, but there has been such an awakening in this moment. There is an understanding that there has to be an agenda that centers not only the base, but the community of people that built this country, the community of people who this was their country, and that is Black and Native folks. So when we kind of step into now, we're in 2020, we have an administration that we can actually debate with, an administration that we can actually argue with, an administration that we can leverage with. I'm very confident that everything that we would like to have done will not be done. I think that also that we've largely seen that there has long time been an issue with communication, and the outside people, that pictorial that you painted, that those people don't regularly get within earshot or get an arm into these inside group. And that's where you're seeing when campaigns, the general election campaigns, you see these 9-month heavy hitting money going everywhere except to those outside groups who are trusted brokers, who people in the community actually do trust. Just take Georgia example, my home where I am right now. Largely when people talk about Georgia, they're talking about 5 of 159 counties.
Right.
Georgia has 159 counties. You can't talk about Georgia if you do not talk about rural Georgia, because it is an agricultural landscape. But that's not largely what you see focusing into the political and largely mainstream narrative. So all of that really is to say is that this has really been a communication problem that has been happening for years, and really to posture and really to prepare for a lot of the demands that we want to see happen to really support and bolster our community. They're not going to happen. One thing I do believe that can be done is really energizing, supporting, and investing in those outside communities, so that as we begin to move into other elections, that we will have a voice. But I just don't believe that we can lay to bear all of these things that people are wanting to see happen within this administration within these 4 years.
Well, the reason I got to disagree with that, because other groups swing for the fences. See, here's the deal. I can't go into a fight, Greg, pulling my punches because I'm afraid they might punch back. I got to punch. Here's what I mean when I talk about inside, and outside. This is what I mean by that. 1959, Roy Wilkins, head of the NAACP, calls Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. a radical. 1960, Malcolm X rises to prominence with the Nation of Islam. The former radical becomes a moderate. When King goes to the White House to meet with LBJ, SNCC doesn't go because SNCC wasn't invited. But if you look at between 1960 and 1968, most of the most aggressive public demonstrations of civil disobedience were led by SNCC and CORE. Now, SCLC was there, NAACP was there, but they were told, do not do the freedom rides. SNCC said, hell no, we doing the freedom rides. CORE, we're doing the freedom rides. And so what I'm saying, Greg, is that in the 21st century, there are going to be black groups who go to the White House to meet with the president. That's fine. There are going to be black groups who don't get invited to the White House to meet the president, which is good because those groups are going to be able to exert the kind of external pressure that's on the administration to get things done. So those who are on the inside will say, now, you know, we need to negotiate this thing because they ain't stopping. Y'all, Obama was president. I was there in front of the White House, which is 3 blocks from here, when I forgot his name, but he was the Asian guy who was in the military who got kicked out because of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I cannot remember his name right now. I stood there. I left a meeting from inside the White House and stood there as he handcuffed himself to the fence. Now follow me, y'all. There was a meeting, there was a rally of other LGBT folk in D.C., but another group was in front of the White House, chained themselves to the fence, and they got arrested. But there was another group that was meeting in the White House. The folk who were meeting in the White House were applauding what the folk on the outside were doing because that outside pressure gave them more leverage on the inside. We've always had an inside-outside game, Greg. So I'm perfectly fine with this meeting, but you got to have the outside leverage to push them to do what's right. Or as FDR told A. Philip Randolph, Philip, make me do it.
Sure. And I'm glad you mentioned Phil Randolph because and Anna Arnold Hedgeman and Bayard Rustin, that March on Washington movement in 1941, they then sustained that as an organized movement, particularly around jobs and labor, and that movement lasted a generation. It's A. Philip Randolph, it's Anna Arnold Hedgeman who tells Martin Luther King, look, you're coming to lobby for the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We're pushing for jobs. Let's do the marches together. And that is the March on Washington for Jobs and Justice. It is because of the outside groups. A. Philip Randolph, who was called by J. Edgar Hoover a generation before 1941, the most dangerous Negro in America because he was an open socialist. He'd probably be called a Democratic socialist today, which brings us to the point. This framework may be getting ready to fail. And I know you're going to talk in a minute about this lawsuit. I've been looking at some of these amicus briefs, and this structure may very well fail. When Joe Biden talks about the Constitution, or when he says when you question someone's motive, you've lost them. Joe Biden is operating in a fantasy world. The Republican Party has declared itself more important than anything like the United States of America. We see that with Mitch McConnell holding this tiny aid, relatively speaking, hostage to his corporate interests. But what you're talking about, Roland, in the context of American history, the Roosevelt piece emerges right at the time of World War II, which keeps the country together for another 2 generations. But after the 1960s, this steady deterioration of the framework of the American state has really been pushed by demographics. So when Joe Biden says you're going to have to deal with the Hispanics, thereby also indicating his tone deafness. It was funny to hear Vice President-elect Harris have to intervene every once in a while to remind him of things as he got kind of rolling. But he's talking about things in an abstract way that have very real implications in the real world. Biden is staffing his cabinet the way we know he would staff it. It's business as usual. It's a return to the previous Democratic administrations. But who is in office, the politics of demographics, is less important than the policy they make. Black Lives Matter met at the White House. Jareed McKesson, he was down there so much that one time I've been to the White House, I was down there for a screening of Roots, and here come DeRay talking about, this is where I go in. He was in there so much he had a damn revolving door. That didn't do a thing as it related to policy. What did do a thing is all these people who don't never get invited to the White House, and more importantly, never want to be invited to the White House, who are doing the organizing, who are doing the grassroots mobilizing around the country, and that, with all due respect, to what they now call the legacy civil rights organizations, and they call them legacy because they are no longer at the forefront. That does empower the legacy groups when they come into meetings to say something. I'll end with this. What those snippets we heard, I'm not a great Glenn Greenwald fan, particularly after what he just pulled the last couple of months. Although sometimes he's right. You know, I'll withhold judgment until I hear the whole thing. But the part I did hear very clearly let me know that the groups who are outside and will always be there, who make up, by the way, the majority of people in this country, these people need to not only continue to work, they need to expand their work, because all these people in the White House are employees. We should not be treating them like celebrities or royalty to make decrees upon the living and dying in this country. We should break their backs too if we need to.
The thing here, Reese, is at the end of the day is what can you get done? And that is you push as hard as you can with your demands, and you use all of your leverage to get it what you need. And here's the piece. Joe Biden said about 2040, first of all, it's 2043, America's not going to, it's going to be a nation majority people of color. Whites will make up 47% of the country, but blacks, Latinos, and Asians combined will make up 53% of the nation. Okay, so we got the demographic shifts, we got those things as well. But I'm going to stay in 2020. And this is what I'm going to say at any time to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. The group that voted for you at the highest rate were black women. The group that voted for you at the second highest rate were black men. Everybody else was behind. So, if you're black groups, you come to the table like this here. Number one, number two were black people. Everybody else was way behind. White women, 55% went for Trump. 65% Latinos. Follow me here. Black women, 90. Black men, 80. Next group at 65. So they should go in with demands. All I'm simply saying to our people is, don't pull your punches. You're going to have to swing on behalf of our people. That's why you're in leadership.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I've been saying, earn the black vote. I've been saying that I encourage our black leaders to go in there and fight like hell for our positions. Nobody else is pulling their punches. We see the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. They have two Latino appointees. They're pushing for Tom Perez for AG and a Latina somewhere else. They're not saying, oh, okay, we got two, we're cool. So I would never say that black people should not advocate. We absolutely should, and we should unapologetically advocate. The Intercept is not an ally to black interests. Right. The Intercept and what they're trying to push is not, and I know I'm harping on it because that's what it was introduced into the conversation.
Well, and again, we don't know who leaked it. First of all, I can't imagine any of the black participants leaking into the Intercept. I don't really know them as being this super pro-black group. I'm just saying, I don't. But but go ahead.
But my point is this: the reason why I bring that up is that the conversation is edited to make it seem like there's an adversarial relationship, that they're worlds apart, when everything I heard about that was about anecdotes and personality type of things and not as much about substance. I have no reason to believe that in an hour-long conversation, there was no substantive agreement on issues when President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris ran on issues that are in agreement with what 85% of what these organizations are pushing. And so that's what I'm interested in hearing. What were the tangible outcomes of it? What was the substance, the policy substance that was talked about? Joe Biden was never going to be the guy who was going to come out there and do executive actions to the extent of somebody like VP-elect Kamala Harris would have, or other people. Kamala Harris ran on executive orders and go on balls to the walls with that. Not Joe Biden. And so what I'm interested in is, okay, where are the areas of disagreement? And I say this every time we talk about policy and substance. And what were the areas of agreement? What is the framework for where we're going forward? Not this personality stuff, not this slogan stuff. All that stuff, it don't really matter, because Joe is who Joe is, and that's who we signed up for. So where can we get some actual policy things? And the whole Bills Act thing, that was already decided before the meeting. So of course he's not going to sit up there and backtrack on that. That was a moot point by the time the meeting had occurred. So all I'm saying is, I'm all for demanding, I'm all for pushing, but I would like to see more about what was actually discussed, the substance, and where we are apart on things, so that we know where to push. Because right now it just seems like we just push on all the stuff that we're already agreeing on. Where do we actually disagree? And let's push there.
And the other day, the final point here, before we go to our next story, Erica, the reality is here. All the conversation right now is about appointments. The reality is inauguration is January 20th. But it will come down to legislative priorities. But again, the outcome of the Georgia Senate race also determines that. I mean, as simple as that. I mean, we can have all the philosophical discussions we want to.
Right.
If Ossoff and Warnock both don't, look, let's say Warnock wins, Ossoff doesn't. It's 51-49. You're still screwed. You're screwed. And it's not like Lisa Murkowski or Susan Collins is going to somehow fall your way when it comes and make it a 50-50 tie, and then Kamala Harris is going to break the tie. I doubt that very seriously. So we absolutely get all of that. But again, Erica, it has to be made perfectly clear, and this is why I think these things do matter. It has to be made perfectly clear to President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris that our job is to represent our people, and we're going to do that as aggressively as we can, and there are going to be times and we're going to piss you off. We're going to get on your nerves. Look, I know this, okay? There's a reason Obama has not sat down with me about his book.
No question.
Okay, I'm real clear. I know why I never got an exit interview with Obama. And I know why. Again, we finally got the book. Finally got the book. Why? Because I use my platform to critique and push him aggressively, and him and his folk didn't like it. Well, guess what? That's my damn job. And if I never get an interview with Obama about his book or the next 2 or 3 he gonna write, I'm good because I did my job. I'm not interested in the photo op. I'm here to step up and represent the interests of black people, and I'm going to do that. And the same thing for Biden and Harris. I'm going to do it. And guess what? The White House is 3 blocks from the offices of Roland Martin Unfiltered. Y'all going to see me a whole lot.
Right. And here's where I'm landing on that point. You know, this for me is noise at this point, because what I look at is that there should not be a Senate runoff race. If there was work that was done during the general election to make sure that voters were galvanized, that we should have picked up a Senate seat in Mississippi, that these 2 Senate seats that are now a runoff election, that those should have been picked up as well. And we can go on and on. If, in fact, again, going back to those outside groups, if those groups had been properly supported and invested in. And I think what we're kind of seeing now, or what we've already known, kind of preaching to the choir, is that no one is going to save us. We're going to save ourselves. We're going to talk about this a little later, but even looking at with this nomination of Tom Vilsack going back into another administration to be the Secretary of Agriculture, and that John Boyd, who's a friend of your show, who has been on a farmer with the National Black Farmers Association, was not invited to that meeting, that he is an important voice in that conversation around agriculture, black farmers, and making sure that black farmers aren't getting less than 10% of microloans from the USDA, ensuring that black farmers aren't getting 0.2% of loans that are afforded to all farmers. He should have been a part of that conversation. So what I am saying is that we have to be an engaged citizenry, that we have to continue to engage, inform ourselves, so that as elections come forward, as they continue to happen the next 2 years, the next 4 years, that we will continue to empower ourselves, like you laid out before with the historical anecdote, so that when it is time for us to make noise, it is not that we have made all of the noise, and not saying that this is what this been just in 2020, that we have galvanized millions and millions of people, the base, the people that came out and continue to save this country, black men and black women, and say these are our demands and expect them within a specific time frame.
And here's the deal. Again, the Tom Vilsack get confirmed by the Senate. Guess what? Black farmers should be there day one. And this is where you put pressure. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you something right now. If Doug Jones gets the nod, or whoever gets the nod for Attorney General, we're going to be right there as well. See, again, I'm telling you right now, I'm hitting everybody. Interior, Commerce, HHS, HUD, USDA. Don't think for a second, if Lloyd Austin is confirmed, that we ain't gonna be right there with the Pentagon. I've already told y'all in terms of Eleanor Holmes Norton, the Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, when she did the study with the GAO that showed the federal government over 5 years spent $5 billion on advertising and black media only got $51 million. Oh, let me be real clear. We're gonna be there. This is where black interests, black economic people should be saying Janet Yellen when we meeting.
Right.
Black housing people, Fudge gets confirmed when we meeting. Black folks who care about the environment, EPA, Interior, when we meeting. Business folks, Commerce, when we meeting. Black veterans groups of McDonald, when we meeting. See, I'm not just focused on who got the meeting with Biden and Harris.
Right.
Black folks, we got to hit everybody, every agency, every department, every secretary to say fair share. That's what we got to do.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.